Adam Lucas, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Adam, I've been reading your articles after every Carolina basketball game for, I don't know, as long as I can remember, 9-10 years now. What's the article that you're most proud of that you've done?
Wow, that's a good one. There was one a couple years ago where a guy who I did not know prior to when the game started, named Jason Pierce, came to the game. I think Carolina was playing maybe Nicholls State, but don't hold me to that. It was not a conference team. And Jason had a very late form of cancer, and he just happened to be sitting near me. And so got the chance to talk to him a little bit during the game, and then got the chance to take him back in the locker room after the game, got a few autographs, and just the impression that getting to see the things that we take for granted every day made on him was great. And so that wasn't exactly the most memorable game, but that was one of the most memorable stories, just to get to meet him and just get to show him around. And it ended up, unfortunately, that he passed away just a couple weeks later, and I think it was actually buried with some of the autographs he got that night. So to be able to do something like that was special.
I can definitely understand why that was a great story. Well, along the same lines, what article have you had the most fun writing?
Probably some of the wins over in Durham the last couple of years. I think it was last year, I tried to get out and kind of see some of the stuff before the game, like walk through the Cameron Crazies who were lined up outside and just see what was going on. And that happened to be the time when there were some Carolina students running through there, and they got blue paint thrown on them and got in this big tussle. And just to get to see that, and then, of course, get to see the game, that was a fun one to write, just because it was so important to those seniors to go undefeated over there. And it's so unlikely to do that. And for them to be able to do it, it was a lot of fun.
That sounds great.
Speaking of those seniors, Tyler Hansbrough is one of them. What's your favorite Tyler Hansbrough story that maybe everyone doesn't know about?
I think, wow, there's a couple. But last summer, before the season started, we took all the seniors out and did kind of an Olympics type thing. It was Bobby Fraser's idea because he knew he was going to win. And so they did things like they played putt-putt, they did a batting cage, they did go-karts. And in the batting cage, Tyler, I don't think, had played much baseball, if at all, in his life. And so when he first got in there, he was just flailing and couldn't hit anything. But then eventually he just got so mad that he convinced himself he was going to hit it and just started crushing the ball. And he would hit one, he'd go, "That's Pujols right there." And he was just dead serious. And just to see him be in everyday life the way he is on the basketball court just reinforced he is like this all the time. And that's what made him as good as he was.
That's great. That's definitely a great story. Well, you've worked with, I know, a couple of players definitely on the basketball team. I know you teamed up with Wes Miller to write Road to Blue Heaven. Can you talk a little bit about that experience?
Yeah, that was fun. Wes just kind of called me one day and said, "I want to write a book." And I said, "Good, you should." And he goes, "No, you're going to help me write it." And I said, "Well, you're doing the hard part, and I'll write down what you say." And we met once or twice a week his senior year, and he just talked about what was going on. And when I was growing up, I was a big Carolina basketball fan, and I always wished a player would do something like that just to kind of let me see what it would be like to be on the team. And that's what Wes said he wanted to do, and hopefully he did that a little bit.
Great, yeah.
Okay, so that was Wes's book. You helped with that. I know you've also written and contributed to a few other Carolina books. Which one did you enjoy writing the most?
The most interesting was probably the book on the 57 team, just because I did not actually see the 57 team in action.
Yeah.
And when I started, I thought that probably wouldn't be much of a problem. But then what I realized was there wasn't any film of the 57 team either. And the people who saw them play, you could, if both of y'all had been there, you would both tell the story completely opposite of exactly what happened. So it turned into where I would just take the person who either A, had the best story, or B, seemed to remember it the best. But getting to talk to the 57 guys at that time, Bob Cunningham was alive, and getting to talk to all those guys and just see how impressed they were for Carolina fans to still remember them. When they come to games, people still say, "Hey, you were on that 57 team. That's one of the greatest teams of all time." And 50 years later, for people to still remember that, the impression it made on those guys was neat.
Yeah, I'll bet.
Now, Roy Williams, if someone has to replace Roy Williams in the next 5-10 years, can you see a player coming in, maybe like, Wes Miller? Who do you see coming in for that head coaching job?
There definitely are some players kind of getting out there into the coaching ranks. Wes is doing that. A couple of coaches, former players, are on staff here with Jared Hass and CB McGrath. I don't know. That's going to be interesting. I hope that decision is 10 or 15 years away and not
No,
5
I
or 10
agree.
years away. Coach has said
least.
Coach has said he thinks he's got 10 more years in him, so I'm holding him to that.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, at least 10. Well, before we look at Roy in these next 10 years, Dean Smith is on, some kind of special level here in Carolina and Chapel Hill. Does Roy ever match something like that, or does he not want to match it? Does he want to be on a different level?
I think even Coach Williams would tell you, and he's said a lot, that he's not going to match Dean Smith. And I think that's for a couple reasons. One, he's not going to be here as long as Dean Smith was. And two, Dean Smith had to build it not from scratch, but the Carolina had won before Dean Smith got here, but the family part of it wasn't here before he got here. And what he achieved in bringing all those folks together, which is what we see at the professional alumni game or any reunion that they ever have, the guys want to come back. And that's what he did. And so I think even if Roy Williams wins a national championship every year for the next 10 and then retires, A, that'll be great. But
Yes.
B, I think he'll still tell you that's not quite the same thing as what Dean Smith accomplished.
So you like seeing the Carolina wins, and lately we've seen plenty of that. And while we're talking about Roy Williams, is there any way that as long as he's here, they ever dip? I don't think they could ever dip like they did when Dougherty was here to the 8-win season, but can they ever even dip outside of a top 25 team?
I think there may come a year when Carolina doesn't make the Final Four. I think that may happen.
That'll be a
That's all
sad
I
year.
can say.
Beyond that, I think he's too good. And that sounds like I'm kissing up, but I'm not. I mean, he just is that good. Some people are that good at what they do. He's one of them. Not only one thing Coach Smith says about him is that what impresses him the most is not only is he a good coach, he's a good recruiter. And there's not many in college basketball who combine it that way. A lot of guys are better at one than they are at the other. Coach Williams he's the best at both. And when you put that together, it's hard to foresee a dip.